The NHL made over $6.5 billion in total revenue last season. The least valuable team in the entire league, Columbus, is worth $1.3 billion. And yet, most people you know probably couldn't name 3 NHL team owners. That gap between what hockey quietly generates and how little attention it gets is exactly what this video is about. You probably think the NHL is the fourth wheel, the league that shows up after the NFL, the NBA, and maybe even baseball. The one that gets mentioned last in the sports business conversation, if it gets mentioned at all. And here's what's strange, that reputation isn't entirely wrong. The NHL doesn't dominate Sunday afternoon television. It doesn't produce the kind of mainstream cultural moments that the NBA does. Its players are not household names the way quarterbacks or point guards are. But here's what you don't know. Behind that quieter image, the NHL has quietly built one of the most stable, loyal, and profitable sports business ecosystems in North America. And the way it makes money breaks almost every assumption you have about how a major sports league operates. By the time this video ends, I'll show you the one structural fact about how NHL teams generate revenue, a fact that separates hockey from every other major American league. And it explains why the NHL's business model is, in some ways, more durable than leagues that get 10 times the attention. But first, let's talk about where the money comes from. Because the answer is not what you expect. Start with something most people get completely wrong. When someone says sports revenue, they usually think of television. That's the NFL model, a machine where national broadcast deals pour billions into team accounts before a single ticket is sold. The NFL's national TV deal alone is worth over $100 billion over 11 years. Every team gets a massive equal cut, regardless of whether they sell out their stadium or not. The NHL does not work that way. The NHL's current national media rights deals with ESPN and TNT are worth approximately $625 million per year combined. That's real money. That's more than double what the previous NBC deal paid. But compared to what the NFL pulls from television, it's a fraction. And unlike the NFL, the NHL cannot rely on national media money to float the entire business. So what does an NHL team actually depend on? Ticket sales, live gate revenue, the arena itself. Here's the number that defines the entire NHL economic model. 44% of NHL revenue comes directly from ticket sales. Compare that to the NFL, where tickets account for roughly 17% of total revenue. The NBA sits around 26%. Even MLB is at 31%. The NHL is, by a wide margin, the most gate-dependent major sports league in North America. And that single fact changes everything about how you understand this business. Think about what that means. In the NFL, you can have a half-empty stadium, a losing team, and still collect your national TV check. The broadcast money insulates you. In the NHL, if your arena isn't full, you feel it immediately. The business lives and dies on people walking through those doors, buying seats, and staying all 3 periods. That creates pressure, but it also creates something valuable, a fan base that actually shows up. NHL fans are not casual. Walk into a sold-out hockey arena on a Tuesday night in a market like Toronto, Montreal, Boston, or Minnesota, and you're not looking at a crowd that bought tickets because they were on sale. You're looking at people who have been waiting for this game for days, season ticket holders who have held the same seats for 15 years, families who treat the home schedule like a calendar event. And the league has learned to build its entire business around that loyalty. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the most valuable franchise in the NHL at $4.4 billion, generated $130 million in net gate revenue last season alone. That is the second highest gate number in the entire league. Toronto's arena is sold out for every single home game. There is a waiting list for season tickets that is, by some accounts, years long. But here's where it gets more interesting, because ticket sales are just the floor. The real architecture of NHL arena economics goes much deeper. Modern sports arenas are not just venues. They are revenue machines with multiple layers, and the NHL has learned to extract from every single one. Above the standard seats sit the premium spaces, luxury suites, club seats, loge boxes, premium club memberships. These are sold not just to fans, but to corporations, law firms, financial institutions, tech companies, businesses that use suite access as a client entertainment tool and write the cost off as a business expense. The average NHL team generates approximately $35 million per year from premium seating alone. Some teams do significantly more. The Los Angeles Kings, playing at Crypto.com Arena, generate more revenue from premium seating than from any other single source, including media rights. Now layer on top of that food, beverages, merchandise, parking, arena naming rights, and event days when the team is not even playing. When an NHL team owns or controls its arena, as many do, those ancillary revenues compound into serious annual income. And here is something that almost no one outside the industry talks about. An NHL arena hosts between 41 and 50 home games per season in the regular schedule. But the building itself can host concerts, boxing matches, college events, esports tournaments, and family shows. The arena generates revenue 365 days a year. The hockey team is the anchor tenant, but the building is always working. This is why analysts say NHL teams don't just own sports franchises. They own and operate commercial real estate in major urban markets, and that asset doesn't sleep between games. Now let's go back to television, because even though the NHL isn't the NFL, the media picture has changed dramatically in the last 4 years. Before 2021, the NHL's national TV deal with NBC was worth about $200 million per year. The league had fallen off ESPN completely for 16 years. It was genuinely underexposed on national television. Then came the new deals. ESPN signed a 7-year agreement worth approximately $400 million per year. Turner Sports, TNT, and TBS added another $225 million per year. Combined, those two deals more than tripled the league's national media income and brought the NHL back to major mainstream television platforms for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Average viewership has risen every single year since, from 391,000 per game in the 2020-21 season to over 504,000 per game by 2023-24. Those numbers are still far below NFL ratings, but the trajectory matters. The audience is growing. And then there is local media, which is where many NHL markets generate an additional revenue layer that national numbers don't capture. The Maple Leafs, for example, earn approximately $45 million per year from their local media rights deal with Rogers. Their next deal is projected to rise to $55 million annually. That is almost as much as some entire team media deals in smaller leagues. Local markets with deep hockey culture generate local broadcast income that adds significantly to the economic picture. And it is a stream that the league's national deal figures don't fully reflect. Now add sponsorship. In the 2024-25 season, NHL teams generated a combined $1.53 billion in sponsorship revenue, up 9% from the prior year and up nearly 20% from just 2 seasons ago. The average NHL team now earns approximately $47.8 million per year in sponsorship deals. That figure is more than double the average for MLS teams, and it sits within range of the NBA average. But what is fascinating is how hockey generates that sponsorship value. Because the NHL has something most leagues don't. 93% of its total sponsor media value comes directly through broadcast, meaning when sponsors buy into an NHL deal, they are buying board-side exposure, jersey patches, and on-screen presence during live game broadcasts, not just digital impressions or social media campaigns. That creates a different kind of sponsor relationship. Companies paying for NHL inventory are paying for live eyeballs during high-engagement game moments in front of fans who are watching with intent. The league now has 70 active sponsorship deals tied to the brand, including financial services, automotive, insurance, and technology companies. The Jersey Patch program, a relatively new commercial inventory item added in recent seasons, opened an entirely new revenue stream. Every team selling a jersey patch is selling some of the most visible real estate in live sports. Now here's what's about to happen, and this changes the financial picture even more. Playoffs. Regular season economics are significant, but the NHL playoffs are a completely different financial event. A single playoff home game generates roughly 2 to 3 times the revenue of a regular season game. Ticket prices spike. Premium suite demand jumps. Sponsorship visibility increases. Local media coverage intensifies. The building sells out immediately, often within minutes. For a team that makes a deep playoff run, reaching the conference finals or the Stanley Cup final, that additional gate revenue can represent tens of millions of dollars in income that was never part of the regular season budget. And under the league's revenue sharing structure, playoff teams contribute a portion of postseason gate receipts into a shared pool. Under the new CBA that rises to 50% of revenue from conference final and Stanley Cup final games going into the pool. That system redistributes money to smaller markets, but it also reflects just how enormous playoff gate receipts actually are. You only share from a pool that is worth sharing. The Florida Panthers, who won the Stanley Cup in 2024, exist in what was once considered a weak hockey market. South Florida, heat, beaches, not exactly traditional hockey territory. And yet, by the time the Panthers reached the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, their arena was electric. Their franchise valuation surged. Their brand went from regional to national. That playoff run did not just generate gate receipts. It created a business inflection point, the kind that changes sponsorship deals, media visibility, and long-term franchise value in ways that compound for years. Which brings us to the number that might actually shock you. The least valuable NHL team right now, the Columbus Blue Jackets, is worth $1.3 billion. That's not a misprint. The worst positioned franchise in the entire NHL is a billion-dollar asset. The Columbus Blue Jackets have missed the playoffs repeatedly. They play in a mid-tier market. They are not a glamour franchise, and they are still worth more than the entry point for many MLB franchises. A league that has been around for over 150 years. The average NHL franchise is now valued at approximately $2.2 billion. The Toronto Maple Leafs are at $4.4 billion. The New York Rangers are at $4 billion. The Montreal Canadiens sit at $3.4 billion. The Edmonton Oilers, a Canadian market, have surged to over $3.2 billion. And across the entire league, Forbes estimated that every single NHL franchise was profitable during the 2023-24 season, with average operating income of $74 million per team. Every team, profitable. In a league that most casual sports observers treat as a secondary concern. How did that happen? When did hockey quietly become this? Here's the part most people miss. Franchise value in professional sports is not primarily about performance. It's not about trophies. It's about scarcity, market position, real estate, and the structural inelasticity of owning an asset that cannot be replicated. There are 32 NHL teams. There will not be 64. There will not be a competing league that dilutes the brand. The NHL has a hard supply ceiling, and as sports media continues to expand, as streaming wars drive rights fees higher, as live sports become the last truly appointment television in a world of on-demand everything, every franchise in every major league becomes more valuable simply because of its position inside a closed system. When a private equity group or billionaire buys an NHL team today, they are not buying a hockey team. They are buying a media and entertainment asset with a perpetual operating license, located inside a protected market, anchored to a fan base that has demonstrated decades of loyalty, with hard floors on valuation and substantial upside as media rights reset. The average NHL team revenue rose to $243 million in the 2024-25 season, up 10% in a single year. EBITDA rose 20% in the same period. These are not the numbers of a struggling niche league. These are the numbers of a quietly compounding business. And here is the twist. Everything you just heard, the gate-driven model, the arena economics, the sponsorship machine, the franchise appreciation, all of it is built on something the NFL cannot buy, and the NBA spent decades trying to develop globally. It's built on local loyalty. The NHL's weakness in national media is, paradoxically, its greatest strength at the market level. Because when a league does not dominate the national conversation, it must earn its audience differently. It must be embedded in a city. It must be part of the rhythm of a region. It must give people a reason to need the home game. Not just to watch a spectacle, but because their identity is tied to it. Walk into TD Garden before a Bruins playoff game. Walk into Bell Center before a Canadiens game in Montreal. Walk into Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota, where the Wild sell out every single game in front of one of the most passionate hockey markets in North America. Those fans are not there because the NHL won a Twitter news cycle. They are there because hockey is woven into their community in a way that no amount of national marketing budget can replicate. And that loyalty is what fills the arenas, The arenas fund the operations. The operations build the franchise value. The franchise value compounds over decades. The NHL doesn't need to be louder than the NFL MLB. It just needs the seats to be full. And they are.